Have you ever seen someone or something so unwanted that the world simply turned its back, not even giving a chance to understand the truth? This isn't just a story about a dog nobody wanted, it's about the reason why, and how one man's decision to look closer when everyone else looked away changed everything. Stay with me until the end, because when you hear what was written on that dog's collar tag, you'll understand why no one could ever see him the same way again. The shelter was loud. Bark after bark echoed through the halls, paws scraped against concrete floors, and volunteers hurried from one kennel to another. Families came in with hope in their eyes, children pointing to fluffy puppies, couples whispering about which dog would fit their home. And yet, there was one kennel no one ever stopped at. Inside sat a thin, black and brown dog with eyes that looked far too tired for his young body. His name tag on the kennel simply read, Rufus. Whenever people passed, Rufus would press himself into the corner, trembling. He didn't bark, didn't wag his tail, didn't try to win anyone's heart. To most families, he looked broken. One mother whispered to her son, "Not that one, honey, he looks scary." Another man glanced at him and muttered, "That dog looks like trouble, probably aggressive." No one asked his story, no one looked at the small tag on his collar that hung beneath his fur. They saw only a dog that seemed unlovable. Day after day, Rufus was overlooked. The volunteers tried their best. "He just needs patience, he's been through a lot," one would explain. But the families always shook their heads. They wanted playful, friendly, easy. Rufus wasn't easy. And so he waited, alone, rejected. But one rainy afternoon, everything changed. A man named Daniel walked into the shelter. Unlike the others, he wasn't looking for a perfect dog. He had lost his wife a year earlier and his home felt unbearably silent. He didn't want noise or chaos, he wanted companionship. Someone who, like him, understood what it meant to hurt. As he walked past the kennels, he noticed the same thing everyone else did, the dog in the corner refusing to make eye contact. But instead of walking past, Daniel crouched down and just waited. Minutes passed, and then slowly Rufus lifted his eyes. They weren't the eyes of a monster or a dangerous dog, they were eyes full of grief. And in that moment, Daniel felt something break inside him. He whispered, "Hey buddy, what happened to you?" That's when he noticed the collar. Unlike the shelter's tag that read only Rufus, there was an old, worn-out tag still hanging beneath it. Curious, Daniel gently asked the staff if he could see it. They hesitated but handed the collar over. And when Daniel read the words on that tag, his breath caught in his throat. The tag was scratched and faded, but the words were still clear. "My name is Rufus. If I seem scared, it's because I lost my soldier. Please be patient with me." Daniel froze. Suddenly everything made sense, the trembling, the fear, the sadness in Rufus's eyes. He was broken. He was grieving, just like Daniel. The shelter staff explained what little they knew. Rufus had belonged to a young military man who never returned home. When the soldier's family couldn't care for him, Rufus was brought to the shelter. Since then, no one wanted to take a chance on the scared dog. Daniel's throat tightened. He thought about the nights he sat alone, staring at the empty side of his bed. He thought about how people avoided him too, because grief made him quiet, distant, hard to be around. He and Rufus weren't so different after all. Kneeling down, he whispered, "I lost someone too, buddy. Maybe we can help each other." When he reached out his hand, Rufus didn't run. He didn't lick it either. But for the first time, he didn't shrink away. That was enough for Daniel. The adoption papers were signed that very day. At home, the first weeks weren't easy. Rufus hid under tables, flinched at sudden movements, and refused to eat unless Daniel sat nearby. But Daniel didn't give up. Every evening, he'd sit on the floor with a book, reading aloud in a calm, steady voice, not for himself, but for Rufus. And slowly, something remarkable happened. Rufus began to inch closer. One night, Daniel felt a warm head press against his leg. Weeks later, a tail wagged just once, but it was a start. And then one morning, Daniel woke up to find Rufus curled beside him, finally trusting that he wasn't going to be left again. The two broken souls, both carrying loss, were healing together. Months passed and Rufus transformed. His eyes no longer looked haunted. His body filled out. He ran in the yard, ears flapping, tail wagging freely. People in the neighborhood who once avoided him now stopped to smile, asking to pet him. Daniel would smile back and say he just needed someone to read what was already written on his heart. And maybe that was the message all along. Because sometimes the world rejects what it doesn't understand. But if we slow down, look closer, and listen to the stories hidden beneath the scars, we might discover not something broken, but something waiting to be loved. So, the next time you see someone or something that looks unlovable, remember Rufus. Every family rejected him, but one man chose to read the tag on his collar, and that choice gave them both a second chance at life. Because love doesn't always come wagging its tail at first sight. Sometimes it comes trembling, scarred, and afraid, but when we choose patience, when we choose compassion, we don't just rescue them, we rescue ourselves.